Have you or someone you know experienced unexplained health issues potentially linked to electronic warfare? Project Archimedes, in conjunction with law firm Disabled Rights Advocates, is leading a groundbreaking worldwide action against the United States government, focusing on the impacts of 5G, EMF, and other unexplained phenomena, including what's known as Havana Syndrome.
We're dealing with energy weapons.
Permanent brain injuries, the unexplained, serious medical harm connected to a mysterious direct energy weapon.
It was like this piercing feeling on the side of my head.
If you've suffered from symptoms like headaches, dizziness, memory loss, or other unusual health effects that you believe could be related to these technologies, we want to hear from you. We are seeking justice for those affected by these potentially harmful technologies.
Sharp, localized ear pain, dull unilateral headache, tinnitus or ringing in one ear, vertigo, visual focusing issues, disorientation, nausea, and extreme fatigue.
This was the most terrifying experience of my life. I had no control.
By joining this movement, you could help prevent future harm and potentially seek compensation for what has been endured.
We have created a global class action lawsuit. Foreign litigants would be availed to the U.S. courts to seek recovery for those who caused the damage. All roads point back to the United States.
To learn more about your rights, potential eligibility, and how to join the movement, visit projectarchimedes.org.
So we're going to sue in the United States with people from all over the planet who qualify to be a plaintiff simply on the basis that they spend an hour or more a day within 100 meters of a 5G transmitter.
Project Archimedes and attorney Todd Callender are committed to fighting for those who have been impacted.
These are the people who can't fight for themselves. They're the ones who can't hire the lawyer.
Visit projectarchimedes.org today to find out more about joining the movement.
Hello, Vax Choice, Clout Hub, and Liberty Club community. Thank you for joining us today for a live episode of Truth Be Told, hosted by Todd Callender. How are you today, Todd?
Wonderful. Happy Wednesday, you can see, because it's my Red Wednesday. Every Wednesday is Red Wednesday. Now, the question is, how do you take that? Is it, red as in Republican, or is it red in terms of our blood being shed? I don't know, Melissa, but I'm happy to be here.
Good. Awesome. Well, we've got a reoccurring guest back on, James Roguski. I hope I'm saying that right. My apologies if I'm butchering that. But he's going to talk about repealing the PrEP Act, and I want everybody to know the links mentioned will be in the description, available for you to check out, as well as Todds Monologue assets.
Thank you. Those assets are really important. I want people to please pay particular attention today, because Disease X has been launched. We're going to go through it here in a few minutes. It's really important, ladies and gentlemen, that you share. Get those materials, please, and share them around. We're giving you the evidence you need to be credible, and it's so important. I wanted to also thank you all for Friday last, because I asked and said, hey, could you please comment, be a part of this? And people did, Melissa. It was fantastic. We just got to do more of it. The only way out of this is when we stand together, we link arms and hold the line, because they've launched Plandemic number 2. It's already here.
Yes, well, I look forward to hearing about it, and I will be in the background enjoying this show until the end.
Yeah, thank you. Poor Melissa, not feeling well today. And she does such a tremendous job, as does the rest of the Clout Hub, Vax Choice, Liberty Club. Please don't forget that. And by the way, Clout Hub 2 is coming soon, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to be surprised. You're going to log into Clout Hub, and all of a sudden you can see a brand new thing. It's going to blow your mind how beautiful it is, how functional it is, and best of all, easy to share. That's the most important thing that you can do to be a part of the solution, is having those conversations, sharing it around, ensuring that people understand what's at stake, because the reality is this: the survival of our species, the survival of your family depends on all of us linking arms and holding the line. We are not going to do this. It ties into digital ID, as you might have guessed. track and trace. The whole thing is here. We're going to disclose names, who's behind it, how and why. And best of all, we've got James Roguski here, who's going to talk to us about it. A tremendous warrior in this fight. He's been in it for a long time. He's made himself expert on all things WHO, pandemic treaties, and the foundations thereof, which includes the PrEP Act. He's got a new initiative to try and repeal the thing. So we're going to talk to him about that, but let's talk about what's happening right now. With that said, CNN, right? They're the mouthpiece of the owner class. They have and always will be until they are gone and held accountable. But they themselves are out here beating the drum, the pandemic drum. Oh, and by the way, they talk about zombie qualities. If you go down a little bit, you'll see they even put it into their pictures so that everybody can see that the qualities of this pathogen are, quote unquote, a lot harder to deal with this time. I see it's giving you some trouble, Melissa, but it's there. People, the link, look at it. This is like official zombie speak from CNN, the CDC, et al., and it will blow your mind how much it is they talk about this time, like Bill Gates said, is going to be different. It's more pathogenic. It's more dangerous. You can't get over it so easily. It's going to be horrible. By the way, there's going to be blood in the streets and people bleeding, zombies running around. This is the scare tactics they always do. I got a couple videos for you to watch, so you don't believe it's just me. And this one, if memory serves, is actually Al Jazeera. So I want you to understand, this is going out around the world. The pathogen drums are beating, the pandemic drums are beating. Go ahead. Thank you, Melissa.
Our greatest infectious disease experts have a warning for the world. Do you feel humanity is ready for the next pandemic?
I mean, we're definitely not prepared.
So it's absolutely true that governments have moved on. They've got other priorities.
What we don't see is the investment that was promised.
You know, the closest we've gotten is about a few $100 million per year, so not even 5% of what we need at the international level.
If you're prepared to invest every year substantial amounts in military defense, the biological defense should have an equal footing.
COVID-19 took more than 7 million lives, upended economies, left countries in crisis, and brought our hectic planet to a standstill. But scientists say far worse pandemics are on their way.
The COVID-19 pandemic was actually one of the milder pandemics. Less than 1% of people died in the world. But there have been pandemics like plague in the 14th century, which killed half of the global population. And that needs a completely different thinking about planning. How do you regulate vaccine development when half of the people are dying?
Viruses, bacteria, parasites, an array of organisms called pathogens cause infectious diseases. The World Health Organization is warning humanity.
Bacteria, viruses, and parasites, the guy says. How do we prepare for this? This is a new pandemic. The last one wasn't so bad, says the man. Note that he says it's military. We have military funding, but this has got to be similarly funded like the military, because it's always about the freaking money. It never changes, but it is military. I want you to understand that. It's part of what it is. We wrote our book about Disease X. It's medical martial law. We'll get into that with James. But in the meantime, they talk a little bit more about this thing coming out in Africa. Well, why Africa? Because that's where they always freaking launch it. Rwanda, Congo, you name it, Uganda. There are Bill Gates and his people, WHO, CDC, et al., test their shots in Africa on poor African people because they want their resources. They want them dead and they want them to spread disease. Watch this one.
In the heart of Congo, a mysterious health crisis is unfolding. Over 30 lives have been lost, and hundreds more are affected by an illness, causing fever, headaches, coughing, and severe anemia. Initially dubbed Disease X, experts now suggest it may not be a new pathogen, but an undiagnosed mix of known diseases. The World Health Organization suspects pneumonia, influenza, or even mosquito-borne illnesses like dengue, malaria, or chikungunya. Some researchers point to Mycoplasma pneumonia, a respiratory infection linked to anemia, as a possible cause. But the truth remains elusive. With remote locations and heavy rains hampering investigations, This outbreak raises urgent questions. Is it a localized crisis, or a warning of future threats? The search for
Yeah, don't let heavy rains get in the way. My Lord above, we can't have that. Why are you testing your shots in the middle of freaking nowhere? Because it's where you can do things quietly, right? You can measure the response in a bunch of poor Africans nobody knows anything about. They die, nobody seems to care. I care. Why? Because number one, they're humans, they're people. We should care, we should all care. But secondarily, because those poor people are being used as guinea pigs, let us not forget the definition of a humanity in PubMed is a species to be experimented upon. The words they use are chosen carefully, ladies and gentlemen. The public health emergency, right? Those are the magic words for purposes of U.S. law. A public health emergency of international concern are the legal magic words to launch an effort which effectively militarizes medicine. And yes, guess what? We're already in a pandemic. In case you didn't know, they declared a Marburg pandemic on January 1, 2024. We're still in it. So what does that mean? It means that they are going to make this, or I should say have made this chimeric. You hear them talking about all these diseases that share a commonality. They're viral hemorrhagic fevers. That means you get really sick, you get a huge temperature, you start bleeding out of your orifices, whether that's Marburg or Lassa or Zika. They are all man-made pathogens. We have them all. We have their ingredients, we have their cookbook, we have their patents, we have their science, we have it all. And that is our Department of Energy at the end of the day that's behind it. But I want you to pay attention to those legal magic words, because you're going to hear them over and over again. And it won't be too long before you hear somebody saying there's a public health emergency. Watch out. They are also zoonotic, which means that they designed them to leap between man and animal. They're zoonotic. They are chimeric, meaning they're both viral and bacterial. I know there's people out there that say there's no such thing as a virus. We're calling it that for purposes of identifying what it is they've done and how it is they make this very difficult to kill. It doesn't matter because we have the solution on how to do it. There's also one part of this that really bothers me, and it's called the One Health Initiative. It's already passed in the international conventions, UN, WHO. It became a feature of US law. Why is One Health a big deal? Because they statutorily changed public health to include animals, right? Zoonotic means that they made these diseases able to jump from humans to animals and vice versa. Interspecies anyway, cows, chickens, people. Doesn't that give them a good excuse to kill our food supply? Remember the bird flu going around for the last year? Well, guess what? You can't catch bird flu unless you breathe their feces or their blood or their feathers. But they went ahead and killed billions of chickens, got rid of billions of eggs, because it's another means by which they can kill us. Starvation and any excuse will do. So when they do things that are zoonotic, it is for multiple purposes. It's always dual use. Please know that the people in charge understand all of this. How do I know that? Because I told them so on the record, under oath. Watch this little bit from my testimony to the Croatian and European parliaments in 2020. I talk about the magic words, and the effect of those is to revoke your human rights, revoke your charter and constitutional rights, so that there's no avenue of redress, not legally anyway. Watch this for a second.
Made a proclamation of his own. It was a public health emergency of international concern. 6 magic words. Lo and behold, immediately thereafter, the international health regulations were adopted, that they were put into force. And what we saw the OECD, the Organization for Economic and Cooperative Development, do was appoint competent authorities in charge of the countries. So when this invocation of the treaty came into effect, the one world government seized power over all the sovereigns, all the signatories, all the member nations of the WHO, gave their power by and through their various competent authorities in agreements done with the OECD. They gave their power to Tedros Adhanom. Tedros Adhanom The director of the World Health Organization calls on whomever he so chooses to as his experts. And of course, in this case, that was the FDA, the CDC, and Dr. Fauci, amongst others, the very people that were involved in the creation of SARS-CoV-1, the very people that genetically modified that disease to be contagious and to spread like wildfire, did gain of function research and development. Those same people are the advisors to Tedros Adhanom, the director of the World Health Organization, who is not a PhD in science, if memory serves, it's in education or public policy, and is an Ethiopian war.
Yeah, we've got an Ethiopian warlord in charge of global health. And when those magic words are uttered, all power consolidates in him, the WHO, director of the WHO. So that's when the military is implicated by private agreement between the WHO and the DoD under the Obama administration. When those magic words are uttered, public health in the United States not only becomes a military operation, but they amalgamated the functions of law enforcement, public health, corrections, and the judiciary, meaning even if we sue, we can't get any recourse. The PrEP Act, you might recall, also, as it related to the pandemic one, stopped us from getting damages. We couldn't even get into court because the PrEP Act provides these gangsters immunity. This is why we all got chucked out of court. Not only that, but our courts wouldn't get in the way of our military prosecuting a war, even when that war is on humanity itself. Please note, we wrote a book about this. Dr. Corsi, Dr. Campbell, and I wrote a book about this very subject matter. It is extraordinarily well cited and resourced. I want you to please use it. Please get it. Hand it to your public health officials in your local government, because those people actually have the ability to not go with the program. Beautiful, Melissa. Thank you. Share it around. Why? Because people need to understand there are remedies available. They are in there, and those remedies are not just medical, but those remedies are also legal and political. We have the power to take our planet back. We have the power to take our nation back. We have the power to take our individual sovereignty back, and that's what we must do. Link arms, hold the line. With all of that said, James Roguski is here. He's an expert in this stuff. I can't wait to talk to him. Please listen to what James has to say. Visit his site, get his materials, and be educated. Educate others, please. With that said, James, welcome to Truth Be Told. Again, part two, beautiful red shirt. How you doing, brother?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having me. I didn't know Wednesday was Red Shirt Day, but
yeah.
It apparently is, and psychically, I guess you let me know that. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I want to encourage all your viewers to get out a piece of paper and a pen, or your computer, or whatever it is you might take notes on. I want to give you some information and probably be handy to be ready to copy it down. Where do you want to start? There's about 12 hours of material to pack into the next 20 minutes. So
I know. Well, I think we did enough in the beginning to talk about Disease X is on the way. It's already here. I want to understand, how do we stop this thing, James? I mean, you went back to the PrEP Act and you've got an initiative going about repeal that. But what I really also want to know is the 2005 international health regulations that caused the whole world to treat COVID the same way, lock everybody down 6 feet, blah, blah, blah. You have been an expert in this, and they turned it into a pandemic treaty, they thought. Tell us where you're at with all of that.
I hate to say this, but I got my butt whooped, and we all got our butt whooped, and the people in the health freedom movement and everybody out there in alternative media has been silent on this for the last year, because a lot of people claimed victory a year ago. So I really don't want to talk about this, but I'll give you the quick summary, okay? Because it hurts. Last year, when everyone was celebrating and claiming victory, the World Health Assembly, not the World Health Organization, the World Health Assembly, which is all of the many nations who meet once a year at the end of May, on June 1st, just before the bewitching hour of midnight, they adopted amendments to the international health regulations. A lot of details in there. You can go to rejecttheamendments.com. I've been trying to raise awareness about this for 3 years. They adopted amendments to the international health regulations. It took them months to translate it into the 6 languages that they support. They didn't actually officially let the nations know that they had agreed to this until September 19th, 2024. Now, 10 months from September 19th, 2024 is July 19th, 2025. So every nation on the planet still has until July 19th, 2025 to write a letter of rejection to the WHO and to tell them to take their amendments and put them where the sun don't shine. The United States and Donald Trump have started the year-long process of exiting the WHO. That won't be finalized until January of 2026. They did take the negotiators away from the pandemic agreement. I'll talk about that in a minute. But he hasn't said a freaking word about the amendments to the international health regulations or the international health regulations, which are a separate, international agreement. Go to rejecttheamendments.com, learn all about that. If you want to learn about the pandemic agreement, go to rejectthetreaty.com, rejecttheamendments.com, rejectthetreaty.com. People claimed victory a year ago, and I've been trying to get people to wake up and get up off the couch and pay attention. About a month ago, the negotiators ended up with a document that has highlights in it where every word is highlighted in green. The negotiators reached a complete and total agreement. They kept saying nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. Well, everything a month ago was agreed. They have a rule in their, guiding principles that prior to every World Health Assembly, which is at the last full week of May, 6 weeks in advance, they have to submit all of the documents that are going to be discussed at that meeting. Well, after their meeting a month ago, they said, oh, well, let's try to get the final version of the agreement with at least 2 weeks notice. Well, that was Monday. Okay, it's already passed. They did this last year. They're doing it again. They're keeping this a secret. They have not published an official version of the agreement since May 27th of 2024. What? There have no official updates. I've gotten leaked documents. I've published them. I've let everybody know. What they have agreed to, Todd, ties together with what I'm doing with the PrEP Act, and you'll see the tie-in, very soon. On May 19th, coming up to May 27th, they're going to be meeting in Geneva. I believe that the United States will not be sending a delegation. We're out of there. Okay, good on us, but that doesn't mean that this stuff isn't going to impact.
That's right.
It will. And so they're very likely to adopt the agreement. The amendments were adopted last year, 2 separate things, 2 separate procedures. They're very likely to adopt the pandemic agreement, and there's every likelihood that they'll have a signing ceremony. They'll have a big party. They'll pat themselves on the back because, quite frankly, they kicked our butt because everybody went to sleep. Now, I don't like bringing bad news, and I don't like to say, that I failed in a 3-year effort to stop this. But the bigger issue is that people do not understand what is in the document. It's a corrupt business deal to funnel billions of dollars through a totally new bureaucracy, the Conference of the Parties, for what is essentially the Framework Convention for the Prevention, Preparedness, and Response to Pandemics. Well, if that rings a bell, think about the Framework Convention for Climate Change. All of the nations on the planet back in 1992 signed on
Yes,
to
they
that
did.
UN treaty.
That's right.
And now it's $1 trillion a year corrupt, mafioso RICO organization to funnel money through the Conference of the Parties to all of their cronies who are wasting, our money, whether it's tax money or debt money, saving the planet because of climate change.
Well, they fly around in private jets to meet in Davos and elsewhere.
Okay. So what the WHO is on the verge of signing or getting nations to sign on to is another racketeering organization, money laundering organization. What they want, and this is the part that's just astonishing, and I've been saying this for 2.5 years now, the lesson that they learned from COVID was not what you and I have learned. We didn't learn that there were treatments and it wasn't what they said it was, and there were things that you could do. And if you stayed away from the ventilators and the remdesivir and the drugs and the tests and the jabs, you'd have been far better off. What they learned, because this all started in the middle of 2021, believe it or not, they learned that big pharma was not big enough.
That's right.
They had logistics and distribution trouble. They were not able to pump out 8 billion jabs overnight and jab the world. They had cold chain problems. They had,
they abandoned cold chain halfway through. You're right.
And so what happened in the middle of 2021, now you have to give people a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. In the middle of 2021, the vast majority of the world was believing the propaganda. Oh, if you want to get out of this problem, you got to get jabbed a couple of times. And the poor nations around the world, Africa, Asia, South America, wherever, they weren't able to get contracts with Pfizer and Moderna because they weren't willing to give up their military bases and their embassies and their, whatever. And they started grumbling about, their words, not mine, vaccine apartheid.
Oh, yes, equity.
Equity. We're not getting our fair share of these biological weapons to inflict upon our own people.
Or the factories to make them.
And that's what is in this pandemic agreement. You hit the nail on the head. They want globalized distribution of the means of production.
Yeah.
They want a logistics network. They want to put everything into their stockpile, the WHO, and be ready for whatever hotspot. It doesn't have to be just a disease X that is all over the world. It might be, something in India, something in Africa, 20 different emergencies all at the same time. Gear up the manufacturing, spend billions of dollars for, many billionaires were
they were made
based on just the testing.
Yes,
just the testing for this stuff is.
But by the way, James, the PCR tests were funded by the World Bank in 2017, called COVID-19 tests. It wasn't named COVID-19 until 2020.
Go imagine, psychic. Well, they have psychic workers. They know what's going on. So the agreement that is about to be put into motion at the WHO, in my view, sets up competing forces. You remember the Cold War?
Of course.
Okay. What we're dealing with now is the United States Defense Department and its biological weapons research labs and development and all of the mRNA technology.
DARPA.
Going toe to toe with the WHO's competing version of that. Let's get the whole rest of the world scouring the countryside through the One Health approach, which means you got to test your poultry operations, your dairy farms, your septic systems, hospitals. Let's go find some scary pathogen. They literally refer to it as pathogens with pandemic potential. And I read that as pathogens with pandemic profiteering potential.
Absolutely.
I've called the WHO's agreement the new OPEC. It's not the oil producing and exporting countries. It's the Organization of Pandemic Emergency Corporations.
Oh my Lord.
What we're dealing with is fascism with a 21st century upgrade.
Yes.
Mussolini said fascism was corporatism, where government and corporations, these public-private partnerships, working together. Well, think USAID and all of the stuff that Doge. Well, this is like WHO AID. They had 400 relevant stakeholders, organizations, non-government organizations, non-state actors, foundations, Bill and Melinda Gates, CEPI, Gavi, whatever, participating in these negotiations. They all wanted this agreement to happen so that the money will flow. And so, it's always about the Benjamins.
Yeah.
So what this ultimately is totally relates to the PrEP Act, but you got to get way down the rabbit hole in the PrEP Act. And
please.
Okay. What they want is to have the WHO give the seal of approval. Oh, great. Your vaccine's approved and your drug is approved and your test is approved. We've given it the, WHO good housekeeping seal of approval. Get these contracts flowing. You don't need any deaths. You don't need an outbreak to prepare for one. So you can sign all of the billion-dollar contracts to pay your cronies to make the poison to put in the storehouse, the warehouse, just in case. If you can convince people to line up to take it, well, then you're rotating your stock and you make more money because you got another contract to replace what you pulled out of your stockpile. Yeah. Simple wholesale retail stuff. If you don't use the product, it goes out of date. That's okay. We'll get another contract and we'll replace it in the stockpile.
We wouldn't want your pathogens to go out of date because that would make them more poisonous than they already are. Right.
There you go. So the way this ties to the PrEP Act, and here's what I really want to talk about. So everybody get your piece of paper and pen or computer or whatever, right? My phone number is 310-619-3055. It's on everything I do. 310-619-3055. If you want to push back on what I'm about to say, give me a call, but please do your homework first. Go to repealtheprepact.com. And if you want to sign a petition to this regard to get organized, it's repealtheprepact.org. So repealtheprepact.com or .org. Now, here's the point. Todd, I can't ask you this question because you're too smart and you already know this question. But let me ask everyone in the audience, okay? What's your opinion of the PrEP Act? Have you read it? Well, I kind of live with my copy of it, okay? And every time I read it, I find a new rabbit hole, a new wing on the rabbit hole, right? So I don't remember how many years ago it was that I read this one section. It's part B, number 7, for those at home, who are following along. No court in the United States or of any state shall have subject matter jurisdiction to review any action taken by the Secretary of Health and Human Services under this subsection. Now, what does that mean? That means it set up the Health and Human Services Secretary as a tyrant.
That's right.
He can now, here's the part where almost everybody is confused, okay? There are 3 types of public health emergency declarations in the United States. And with the international health regulations and the new pandemic agreement, there are 2 separate types of declarations on the international level. Let me run them down. If you have questions, call me, okay? The WHO can declare, get this, a fake public health emergency of international concern, PHEIC, pronounced
6
fake.
magic words.
Do you think the universe is messing with your head? When they tell you it's a fake and you believe that it's real, you just got to look at the acronym and wake up, okay? Once the Director General of the WHO declares a fake, that's all the Secretary of Health and Human Services needs to declare a public health emergency, PHE. Okay. No deaths, no evidence, no nothing. That law got put into place, and I'll challenge I will ask you this question. Does the date January 19th, 2017 mean anything to you? Because that's when that rule got put into place. On the last full day of the Obama administration, they put in final rules, making it so that it's not mandatory, it's not an order, but when the Director General of the WHO says, hey, there's a fake out there, public health emergency of international concern, the Secretary of Health and Human Services has the option of just going, oh, well, he said so, so I'm going to say so
right.
too.
That's exactly right.
Okay. So that's only two things. There's three more types of emergencies that they declare. In the amendments to the international health regulations and in the upcoming agreement, they're pretty much the same thing. They've added not a pandemic. There is no legal definition of the word pandemic. Anytime I hear somebody say the word pandemic, I go, hey,
what does it mean?
That's not a
Yeah.
thing. Right. They defined a pandemic emergency, very specific term of law, pandemic emergency. And when you look at it, it's like, oh, it's just because the Director General wants to. He doesn't need any facts. He doesn't need any vote. He doesn't need any approval. And he's the only one who can turn it off.
Monkeypox.
Right. So,
yes.
Okay. Now, in the United States, in addition to the Secretary of Health and Human Services declaring a public health emergency, PHE, right, the president can declare a national emergency. We hear that all the time. There's a hurricane or a tornado or a flood or whatever. Yeah. That's a totally separate thing. And we've got about 40 or 50 of them going on at the moment.
Right.
Did you know that? If you look them up, it's emergency powers galore.
That's right. It's actually a form of martial law, to be frank, because what happens is the legislature gives over its rulemaking to the president and the courts won't get involved. So yes.
And here's where the PrEP Act comes in. The fifth one on the list, and the way they word it, and I'll read it here just so that you talked about Marburg. Right.
We're in a Marburg pandemic right now.
The Marburg PrEP Act declaration for countermeasures against Marburg was declared during the Trump administration on November 25th, 2020.
That was the first one.
That's how far back that goes. The Ebola, the PrEP Act declaration for Ebola vaccines was declared on December 3rd, 2014. There are currently 9 declarations under the PrEP Act. Acute radiation syndrome, anthrax, botulinum, COVID, nerve agents and insecticides, pandemic influenza, smallpox, mpox, and other orthopox, viral hemorrhagic fevers like Marburg and Ebola, and the one that I'm most concerned about is Zika. Okay, and the reason I say that is this does not cover just vaccines.
That's right.
The real problem with what happened during COVID were the hospital homicide protocols, the medical murder.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've heard of. I already tipped my hat before we talked. You've heard of MAGA, right?
I have. I like MAGA. Make America Great Again. Okay. How could that be bad?
You've heard of MAHA, Make America Healthy Again.
Yes, thank you, Bobby.
Well, I'm promoting MACA. Make murder a crime.
Yes.
Okay. She's
Make
going
it a
to go look
capital
for the
offense. We've got to start hanging people.
There you go. There you go. The PrEP Act is an act that was slipped in to another piece of legislation at the last minute in 2005. They were negotiating a Senate and a House bill. You've heard probably, you don't want to hear how bills are made or sausage is made, right? At the very last minute, they're doing defense appropriations and take you way back, Katrina hurricane relief. And at the end of the negotiations, they thought they had a deal. And a week before Christmas, They slipped the PrEP Act in at the end of that bill. And even if, I think if you go up from where you are a little bit, you'll find a little further, keep going, you'll find that there were 4 Democrats who spoke up and stated very clearly. Hillary Clinton is one, keep scrolling up. Senator Hillary Clinton, Senator Joe Biden, the late Senator Ted Kennedy, and well, up a little bit further, John Conyers, late representative. They said, hey, what in the heck are you guys doing? We had an agreement. Who slipped in this piece of crap? It was Bill Frist, the speaker at the time. They said, this is unconstitutional. If you read the words that these Democrats say, they're like, oh, this is horrible. You can't do this. You know, this is just giving it away to the, pharmaceutical companies. And then they went and voted for it anyways. Because how do you not vote for Katrina relief and money for, the Iraqi war and all this sort of thing? So this turd got dropped into the punch bowl at the last minute, and they never took it out. And here's my ask for everyone that's watching this. Please go to repealtheprepact.com, watch the videos at the top, listen to the audio that's there, read the summary of the PrEP Act, and please read the PrEP Act. Okay, it violates the Constitution in at least 8 ways.
Yes.
Okay, and what I'm advocating is that we, the people, have to utilize the system that our founding fathers gave us. The way you get rid of a piece of legislation that needs to be thrown away is, yes, the ideal would be for someone to bring a court case and challenge the constitutionality of the act and have, ideally, in my perfect dream world, a 9-0 shutout vote where the Supreme Court says, no, get this thing out of here. It has been struck down. It's like it never existed. That would be ideal. Okay. And so I've written a document. I want to talk to you about it at great length whenever we can. 8 ways that the PrEP Act violates the Constitution. People need to understand that in a 20-page bill, they've trashed the Constitution. They've trashed at least 5 of the amendments in the Bill of Rights, guaranteeing our rights.
For sure.
Right to petition the government, right to due process, right to trial by jury, states' rights in the 9th and 10th Amendment. It's an abomination. Yeah. It's abhorrent to the Constitution.
Access to the court.
But we, the second level of fix, right, is we, the people, need to get organized, and we need to let our members of Congress and the Senate know that we want them to pass a repeal the PrEP Act bill. It's only 1 paragraph. Okay, here's what you did in 2005. Here's the amendment for the compensation program, which is a piece of crap. And they added something for tribal nations. These are hereby repealed. Okay, it's really simple to understand. That piece of crap that you added on to a bill and snuck in at the last minute 20 years ago, that has prevented people from filing civil cases. What happens when somebody says, oh, my family was murdered in the hospital and they used the ventilators and remdesivir or gem. They go find a lawyer, they submit a case to the court, the defendant, the hospital or the doctor or whomever, is the defendant in the case, they file a motion to dismiss and the judge goes,
James, we had cases dismissed sua sponte, meaning that you'd file the complaint and within an hour the court was dismissing your case without any prompting from the other side. I mean, that happened in our case, the TRO we filed against Lloyd Austin. The court came back without anybody answering. Like, yeah, no, you can't be here because of what you just said. They cut off access, all forms of redress, including, by the way, as you mentioned, hospital homicides. You'd call the cops to get your loved one out of prison because that's what the hospitals became. Then the cops would arrest you for making a complaint.
Yep. And so I'm wearing red because I'm on fire.
Yeah, you're on
okay?
fire, brother.
I'm calm and a peaceful man, okay? But I am angry because 20 years ago, they passed a law to cover
That's
their
right.
butts. It's
That's right.
licensed to commit
That's right.
murder. It's licensed to cause harm, and it needs to be repealed. Now, I know that this is crazy, right? To try to get Congress to do the right thing. But the point is, we, the people, have to do the right thing. It's our responsibility to let Congress know that we know
That's right.
that what they're for, prior to them, most of the people in Congress right now, most of them were not in Congress 20 years ago. There's a few, okay? But most of the people now are completely clueless. They don't have the foggiest idea. We need to let them know on a district by district level and state by state level with the senators. Here is a one-page, really one-paragraph piece of legislation. You submit it, you sponsor it, you co-sponsor it, you vote for it, you pass this freaking bill.
Yeah.
And I started this campaign Saturday, May 3rd, on purpose, because that's 18 months until the midterm elections on November 3rd, 2026. So I'm dedicating 18 months of my life to scrape away one lousy piece of legislation from the millions of words that need to be scraped away. We really need to start a repeal party. Okay, we need to start scraping.
It's
off
not
all of
just
these
that
laws.
piece. You're absolutely right.
But the PrEP Act, for the people who are watching and listening, it's only 20 pages. You can read it. Okay. Now there's a rabbit hole inside the rabbit hole. Okay. And it's astonishing. You read something 10 times and then you finally see it. Okay. The whole thing is under Title 42, Section 247D-6D. Okay. Now you don't need to remember that. It's all in the documentation. But I'm reading through the definition of a security countermeasure. And I'm like, oh, there's a link there. I click on the link and the link is busted. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. That's not 6D. That's 6B. What in the heck are security countermeasures? So I find my way to that section of the law. It's twice as big as the PrEP Act. I'm reading the whole thing. The punchline's at the very bottom. Oh, this will allocate $3 billion a year to put whatever pharmaceutical products the Secretary of Health and Human Services decides go into the national stockpile. And there's another section in there that says nobody can say what is going into the national stockpile. It's a national security secret.
Of course.
So let me give a shout out to Elon. Hey Doge, you want to look at that $3 billion in the PrEP Act's, strategic stockpile? Who's getting that money?
Free money.
That's some serious cash.
That's right.
Right. And it's yearly. That is as big of a budget as the entire WHO.
Yes, sir.
The poisons and the biological weapons that our nation is putting into our stockpile is a bigger budget than the entire WHO.
Unbelievable.
Okay? If you want to help raise awareness of this, because this is just an educational task. Okay. If anybody out there wants to help,
I love
310-619-3055.
You are the man. We'll put that in the show notes. And the coolest part, ever since I've known you, you've done that. It's a tremendous challenge. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact you put yourself out there like that.
I get to meet some cool people.
I bet.
If people are watching your show, they're my kind of people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is the God, Guns, and Country place, and you've got some good people around here. Thank you for that summary of your dissertation. Melissa, why don't you come back, because I know you got some questions before we run out of time.
Yeah, so did you guys see on May 5th that Trump signed an executive order regarding the gain of function research?
Tell us about it.
Well, I was going to ask you about it because I'm kind of small brained aware, but Kennedy announced it that it says it's an international ban on gain of function research.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you guys knew it was
supposed to be there. Senate. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, James.
I'll go first. I'll go first if you want me to.
Please.
If y'all want to be distracted, go down that rabbit hole. Okay. They're purchasing poison to put in the stockpile to prepare you. All of the talk of gain of function, whatever it may or may not be, okay, the poisons that your doctors give to your 6-month-old baby are approved as emergency use authorized under the PrEP Act. They are not safe and effective, whether or not gain of function was used. The point is that the PrEP Act makes it so that the Secretary of Health and Human Services can be a tyrant and say, well, you know, we haven't really done any studies. We don't need to. We don't have to do any safety checks. It doesn't have to be safe and effective. We got it rammed through as emergency use authorized, products. And if anybody tells your baby to get 2, COVID jabs and then get a booster, a little bit later, they're a covered person. And they're using a covered countermeasure because he's made a PrEP Act declaration.
That's right.
All the rules that you think apply, throw them out the window. Gain of function is a decoy. It may be real, it may be fake, it may be something else. But what they're sticking into your baby's body is poison.
That's right.
How it got to be made and what's in it, you'll never know.
It's witchcraft
because it's
sorcery,
approved. It's approved because he said so.
Exactly right.
Okay, that's tyranny.
Let us not forget
the PrEP Act.
Sorry, James, go ahead.
No, the PrEP Act created tyranny.
It did.
Tyranny. It's tyranny.
It's
very
medical
simple.
martial law.
No court can challenge.
Exactly.
Yep.
Sorry, I apologize. There's a delay. No court can challenge it. James, you're absolutely right, because the PrEP Act prohibits them from
because
today public health is being used. I don't know. Can you hear me now? Is that okay?
It's very quiet, but we can hear you.
Medical martial law, we get screwed with all the time because there is no jurisdiction for the court. It's a military operation. And by the way, Palantir, keep a lookout for them because they're back in this one too. Track and trace, digital ID is all part of it, right? They want to be able to track your biorhythms, your signature, your biological signature digitally. And these gangsters are in charge of it. So the poisons that James talks about aren't just for purposes of killing you or making you sick, which they are, but it's also to harness your body, which they intend to use on the way out. And they charge you a bunch of money to make you feel better while you're dying.
Oh, and Todd, in the PrEP Act, the treatments that they give people for the adverse events of the covered countermeasures are also covered.
That's right. It's exactly
so
right.
if you're silly enough to allow them to poison you and it causes harm and you go back and they try to treat you, whatever the heck they do to try to treat the adverse events that they caused is also covered. You can't sue them. Okay, so it's right. Medical martial law. It's a license to kill. And what we need to do is take it off the books and make medical murder a crime again, because they've covered their butts, every way imaginable with a law that violates so many aspects of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I'm quite confident that absolutely every one of your listeners can read this information and will come away just, infuriated. And we need to channel that energy to get this bill off the books.
I want to put an exclamation mark at the end of what you said. And I'm going to summarize it simply as this. The governments of this world have collaborated. They've indemnified each other such that they can line up their citizens against the wall and shoot them with liquid or lead. Either way, they've given themselves the license to kill. And this was made a military operation. James, spot on. Have you got one more question before we run out of time, Melissa?
I think we are out of time, Todd, unfortunately. But I do have all of James' links available down in the description. I'm going to add the phone number here shortly as well, so that'll be there. Please make sure to subscribe to James' Substack to stay up to date on this kind of thing, and make sure to share this around. As James said, we have to make more people aware of this so that we can speak up and say, hey, we the people are not okay with this. Stop it.
Link
And just let me give a tip to everybody. Let me give a tip to everybody out there. It's really easy to start the conversation. Just ask people, what's your opinion of the PrEP Act? They're not going to know. And so then you can offer them the information. If they want to learn, that's great. If they don't want to learn, invite them to understand this is how we all have gotten screwed over the last 5 years.
Exactly right, James. That's beautifully stated. It's a wonderful challenge. You're such a warrior. You're my hero, and I'm grateful to have you here. Please keep track. Please update us. Come back with more information as you get it, because this is critical. We're in World War III, and the war is on humanity. James just told us all about it, all of the legal details. I love your challenge. Open the conversation by talking about the PrEP Act. I also like MACA. Right? Why are we not talking about?
You got to linger on the M.
Fine.
MACA.
Beautiful. So with that said, thank you, brother. You're a true hero to all of us. Melissa, to you and the Clout Hub, Vax Choice Liberty Club folks, and everybody here listening, spread the word, because our lives literally depend on it. God bless you all. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.